Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 401st episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. If you missed 400, you missed a lot. Go check it out. I had Made by Jim Bob on. Totally, completely, non-politically correct. I've known the guy really only a few months, and I really didn't know him until we got on the interview. One of my all-time favorites. I rejiggled the schedule to get him on the 400th on purpose. So go check it out, but it's not for the faint at heart, okay? You've been warned. Next is coming up is Dr. Cindy McGovern. Great interview. She brought a lot to the table, and I jiggled the schedule again for her because she's coming out with a new book, and I want to support her launch, but you're in for a treat there. Today, you're in for a treat. This is one of my favorite interviews. Chris Spurvey. Man, we got into a lot of stuff. He's from the great Northeast, way far Northeast. Built a business up to 70 employees, sold it, doing consulting now. But he brings a wealth of knowledge. We went almost an hour and could have gone longer. Just a super nice guy, but super informative. We talk about what has stayed the same over the years, how he built the business, how he's growing his current business, and it is totally applicable to whatever you are doing in sales and marketing, all right? You've got to build these relationships. We talk about win-win opportunities, and that's thrown around too much. Well, yeah, it's thrown around so much we throw it away because it's trite. It's just a cliche now. But he talks about how that is key. Talk about how social media can help facilitate relationships and a whole lot more. And, speaking of relationships, speaking of win-win opportunities, that can't even begin unless you convert the visitors to your website to identifiable entities, real human beings with real email addresses, real names, real phone numbers, okay? And Intercom helps you do just that. Check this out. What does insight-driven messaging look like for sales? Like a whole lot more deals, fast. Jump on high-intent leads in the moment with Intercom, the business messenger that extends the reach of your team 24/7. Intercom creates more opportunities for you by booking meetings and collecting data from leads automatically. Take Intercom user Elegant Themes. They now convert 25% of leads through Intercom's messenger. Deals don't wait. Get them with Intercom. Go to intercom.com/deals. That's intercom.com/deals. And speaking of deals, I've got one for you at the end of this episode, so stay tuned. But now let's bring on our guest. Chris Spurvey, we will not talk sports since you're from that land to the north of me. What? Newfoundland and Labrador. You got to have two. I mean, come on. Is that how it's going to be on the podcast, man? Is that how it's going to be?
I hope so. It'll be a lot of fun.
Oh my God. It's like, I don't say I'm from Temecula and Murrieta. Okay. I'm in Murrieta, California. What? Newfoundland and Labrador. What?
The furthest easterly point in North America.
Very nice. Yeah, we chatted a bit. That was, I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
But I remember 9/11.
Yes.
Y'all took in a lot of planes, huh?
Yeah. I don't know what the number was. Over 400. I think there was in the neighborhood of 20,000 people from the United States who lived in our province for a short week or so. Then there was Come From Away, which was I guess it's a play that started in New York. So yeah, it's a lot of history there.
And how big is it?
Well, the size of Newfoundland.
Yes, big. Population is not, right?
No, I mean the size of Newfoundland is about the size of the state of Texas from a geographical perspective. Population-wise, about 250,000. But try to picture one city where the majority of the people live, and the rest of it's all wilderness and so on, right?
Yeah, I'm sure Texas is bigger. Okay, don't make me Google it. I will end this interview. All right, we're not talking about the Toronto Raptors or Texas being smaller than your island. Okay, don't. This is a friendly interview. Okay.
We'll keep it that way.
Whoever said Canadians are nice, I don't know, man. I'm having to reevaluate that. Good grief. So
I
what's up,
remember
man? They sell in Canada, huh?
Yeah.
In this book, It's Time to Sell, Cultivating the Sales Mindset. Do you? I mean, you live like in a wood cabin, right? A log cabin out in the wilderness. Who do you sell to? I mean, like bears, polar bears. Who are you selling to?
Well, the reality of it is, because we live in such a remote area where we live in igloos.
That's a nice igloo. How do you hang pictures in an igloo? But all right, we'll talk about that. I don't understand, man. I'm just learning all kind of stuff on this.
Oh, I could share a lot. As you can tell, we love to laugh too. So that's that's the Newfoundlander in me. There's a Canadian and then there's a Newfoundlander.
Wait a minute. You can be nice and have fun and be in sales?
Yeah.
No way, man. I thought it was all high pressure, like grind people down. The alternative choice closes, tie downs. No?
No, that's not my type of sales.
So how did you get into this? I'm looking through your history here. KPMG. And founded a few things. You've been on your own now, what, almost 6 years?
Yeah. Well, I had built an IT consulting company that got acquired by KPMG in 2013. And so then I spent 4 years with KPMG. And during that tenure with KPMG, I was basically traveling the country of Canada, focused on helping the consultants within KPMG learn how to sell. Because in order to grow within those firm environments, to be partners, you've got to have your own books of business. Right. And thus you want to have your business development skills honed in on, and relationship building and so on. And so that's where I caught a spark for, you know what, I think I can have a bit of fun doing this, and I don't need to be a part of KPMG to do it. So let's see if I can build something of my own again. And so that's when I wrote my book in 2015. And that's when it started for me down a path towards doing what I'm doing today, helping businesses grow their sales capacity and so on.
So what was that like being acquired? Is that a tough transition?
Yes, I would say yes, it was a tough transition, because I mean we grew a company from 0 employees up to about 70, and you were the decision maker, and you could come up with ideas in the morning and start to implement them before the night was out, or before that day was over. Right. Versus being acquired by a large bureaucratic multinational organization. It's entrepreneurship it's not flourishing in those businesses. There's too many processes and so on. I have nothing against those large organizations. It's just, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they gave you 3 vacation igloos and a mush dog team, right? So I mean, it was worth it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I mean, money sells, man. I mean, money talks, right? So I mean,
yeah, they were great sponsors. They sponsored my dog team, my dog's legs team.
Very nice. So let's go back though to building that business. What has been the same, okay, from as far as the challenges, the opportunities when you were starting that up, your first hire, second hire, you get 5 people on staff, versus now as you're seeing, like you always ask, like, what has changed? Like, what has stayed the same? Like, as you now work with companies, what has been the consistent thread or theme or challenge in growing a business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the thing that has stayed the same that my head goes to immediately is that I learned through the building of that business that all revenue in business grows through relationships. And so I think that's the same today as it was, what would that be, 17 years ago when we started that company. So being deliberate, being consistent around forming win-win relationships in the marketplace is the same then as it is the same today that it was then. And what I find today, many people get sidetracked and lose their focus or don't even have that focus because they think sales happens some other way now today, right? So that would be the thing that I identify immediately that has stayed the same. And perhaps we have all these tools today, whether it's social media. We talked about social media a little bit before we jumped on. Today those are really I guess they enable and help facilitate meeting new people. So yeah, I really believe in the power of relationships, and that may sound like an oxymoron, or it may sound like an overused thing, but I certainly live and die by that.
Yeah, we were talking about social media a little bit before we hit record. Is there too much emphasis on social media? If somebody's starting out a business or trying to grow a business, should they double down on social media, or maybe even consider walking away from it so they can focus maybe on a different area that might be better?
I think social media has, and perhaps it depends to some extent on the type of business you're running, right? However, let's just assume, it's a business that's built based on relationships. It's a longer sales cycle and so on. To me, sales or social media, it has its place, and it's a great way to share your story and share the multi sides of your personality and the multi sides of your brand. And so I see that as being a way. And I think before we hit record, I use the analogy of being able to get to second base a whole lot faster as a result of leveraging social media, whether it's sharing your story in the format of an article or a blog, a podcast. It's really just a way to share and then meet up with people who are interested in what you have to say. So I don't believe in the idea of completely shutting off social media, but just know it's not something to sit behind and wait for opportunities to come knocking, right? It's a facilitator, it's an enabler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is an enabler, but I mean, like what you were talking about, an earlier interview I had today, we were talking about social media and cold calling. And this guy was saying that he trains salespeople, and he's basically an outsourced sales team. So you kind of like hire him as a sales manager, and he adds the salespeople and trains and coaches and has the monitoring software and everything for the calls. He says, a few years ago, 88% of calls were routed to voicemail. And he's saying 50% are now being picked up. So we're going from 12% to 50%. Because there's so much noise and clutter and all these gimmicks and things out there, like they actually appreciate speaking to a human.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about relationships, or are you seeing that play out in your world and with your clients now on the consulting side?
Well, I would say I don't have hard data to support it. However, logic would say exactly what you're saying, right? And what your guest has identified. Logic, because it is a very noisy world, and if our goal is to make that initial connection, making that phone call, but I'm probably more of a believer. I am more of a believer in trying and doing whatever it takes, right? So if it means sending an email, or maybe it's sending a LinkedIn email followed by an in-mail or an in-mail, a connection request, followed by a phone call, doing that over a series of a couple of weeks, is probably not a bad idea. So why not do whatever it takes? Try and find out what works for you. It will be what I would say to that. And I know logic. I know for me, I don't answer phone numbers that I don't recognize, and I probably don't return calls unless I have a need, or I've determined the need to talk to that particular individual, because I don't want to waste my time and kind of got my own block up to cold calling, right? But it's not to say everyone's like that. So why not try and see what happens, and just pivot and around what works and what doesn't work.
Right. So my microphone came unplugged. It still had to set it real quick. All right, good. Well, yeah, and you and I are in different situations, right? I mean, we're working from home because I'm the same way. If I don't recognize a number, and even if I do, like if we don't have an appointment, if I'm in the middle of something, I don't take that call.
Right.
I'll text you right back. Hey, I'm doing something. Yeah, can I call you right back? Whatever. But in business, with a receptionist, an executive assistant, whatever, I mean, they're a little more prone to, pick up the phone, or maybe they're less likely because everybody's looking over one on their shoulder. They're less likely to be goofing off on social media, right?
Yes.
So maybe the call is easier to reach them. So, all right. So we looked at what has stayed the same. So what is changing? What are your clients worried about now? What are they trying to implement? Going into 2020. We're well past halfway in 2019, right? So what are they looking at to grow their sales?
So one of the things that so when I look at my experience growing Plato Consulting, and maybe just headcount will be a parameter I share. We were 12 IT consultants. I formed a vision that instead of growing and keep in mind now, this is professional services. So the people who know what they're doing are the deliverer of the services. I formed a vision when we were at 12 or 15 employees roughly, that instead of hiring a pile of account managers and account executives, quote unquote salespeople for the firm, why don't we put in place a means for every one of the consultants to grow their own networks, to grow their own brands, to grow their own goodwill, and go through a process of identifying opportunities with these relationships that they have, feed leads and ideas back to me as the VP of sales. And then I would strategize with them as to how to go about working together to close deals. And so we grew using that model of, I say, growing a growth culture within the firm. We grew to 75 employees roughly in a matter of a year and a half or so. And we went from, let's just say, $3 million in revenue to about $25 million in revenue. And so I point that out because what I find for me, I find growing a sales culture within people within the organization who are not traditionally and stereotypically in sales has really worked well. So when I look across my growth clients or consulting clients, and it's not just within professional services, I have a pretty diverse group of clients, where we enable sales culture, we get everyone involved in sales. It really seems to work. And so getting everyone on board with this idea that we can grow sales through relationships and growing networks and having a means to find leads and opportunities and just providing tactics for everyone to get involved has really worked well, right? So that's what I would say is today, that type of an environment is something we're in a day and age where, everyone can get involved and have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, but is it fun? Is it fun for the marketing department or the IT department or operations or finance to be in a sales culture? Or will they just say, oh, it's not my job?
So what I would say is it's a growth culture, right? It's a mindset that everybody is just out there looking for opportunities. When they're home on a Saturday, they're reading the paper or looking at the internet, the local news, through the lens of, is there an opportunity for the company that I work for? And if there is, I'm going to feed it back. And it's not that everybody gets involved. We talk about everybody getting involved, but the cream rises to the top, so to speak. And I do find every department, there's always one or two good people who do get interested in looking for opportunities, and when I know this sounds when they go to the hockey game, and they're sitting next to somebody, they're getting into a deliberate conversation to try to get to know who that individual is. And if that individual is a decision maker, then, you know, they might be go sniffing for opportunities and then feed that opportunity back. So it's not to say everybody's doing it, everybody's having fun doing it, but the ones that want to get involved, right?
Is hockey, that's what y'all call football in Canada? Is that?
Or is it soccer? Football or soccer? What's the...
I gotta Google that. Hold on, let me pause this real quick. So you mentioned when you were the VP of sales, I mean, was that just a title you took on, or did you bring on a president/CEO to run the company so you could focus on sales?
Well, when the original 4 owners, we started the business, we just went around. Yeah, we went around the table and tried to determine who was best situated for certain roles, and I decided to take the sales hat, right? In terms of the 4 people, there was a logical president and CEO. There was a logical leader of sales, me. The other 2 were more delivery people. So a really good project manager and a really good technical person.
So how did that form? Right. I'm always interested, like, you know, when the Beatles form, right? I mean, all right, well, they were neighbors, right? Or they went to high school together, and it just, you know, they kind of evolved, and then, oh, we got to go get one more guy.
Yeah.
What was the impetus, you know, the catalyst that brought the 4 of you together?
Yeah, well, the catalyst that brought the 4 of us together was, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the technology called PeopleSoft.
Sure.
It was later acquired by Oracle. But here in the local market, one of the main companies in our local market, which was the telephone company back then, were implementing PeopleSoft, and they needed resources to implement PeopleSoft. So they sent a bunch of them down to be trained by PeopleSoft to be PeopleSoft implementers. And 2 of those people were, when they came back and got experience implementing PeopleSoft, they had an entrepreneurial spark, and they connected with me. I was working for an insurance company at the time, and they connected with a guy named Kevin, who became the president and CEO. And 4 of us formed. So there was 2 PeopleSoft plus 2 business-oriented people that formed this company, and away we went, right? And so we focused initially on United States business because the United States was where all the PeopleSoft implementations were happening. And so I was in charge of going out and finding those initial contracts for PeopleSoft implementation. And it wasn't until about 5 years where our people were on planes every week going down to Washington, working for the Washington Post as an example on their PeopleSoft implementation. It wasn't until about 5 years later we ended up tapping into the federal government of Canada's PeopleSoft implementation. And then maybe 5 or 6 years later, the government of Newfoundland began implementing PeopleSoft out where we live. So it came full circle. And we ended up, it was when we really started working on our local market, combined with the early experiences of, I'll call it international selling, we really started to take off. And so we had a pretty strong thing going when KPMG came along and went looking for ways to get into this local market. And they talked to us about acquiring us because we had 75 good resources and, you know, some methodologies and so on. So that's the story behind that.
So the 4 of you were employees, right?
Yep.
So how did that work? I mean, so y'all got to quit your jobs.
Yeah.
Did you all say, all right, we're all into this, you know, we're all going to throw in 10 grand, 50 grand, whatever. And
basically
start a business? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Say we pooled together some savings. But very quickly we landed some initial contracts. And so the owners, the 2 owners I referred to who were also delivering services, they got some initial contracts, and they were really good working with me on what I refer to as landing and expanding. So we got one of them in at the Washington Post, and we got another one in at Citigroup. And when they got in there, I had them sniffing around and looking for new opportunities. And so then they would feed those opportunities back to me, and I would then start lining up resources to fill those other opportunities, right? And so pretty quickly, it was like I would suggest a profit first type of model, because everyone was paying for themselves pretty quick. And it's not until we got to say, I would say 10 or 12 employees that we started to have to figure out, okay, there's going to be bench time. There's going to be time when staff are not on contracts, so therefore they're not paying for themselves and having a margin. So we need to start to pool money to pay for them and hold them there on the bench while they do while maybe they do a bit of educating and training and so on, while I go out and find new opportunities for them.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you know how to price your services? Because I know people, entrepreneurs, especially new businesses, I feel like they're always leaving money on the table. They undercharge. And, you know, after getting beat up a while, they realize, oh man, I got to charge more for what I'm doing. It's like they were always that good. They just didn't believe they were that good. Yeah.
Well, I got multiple angles to come at that. Number one, I will agree with you 100%. The majority of people way undersell themselves. However, when we started Plato, 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 our mindset was we had confidence in ourselves, and we were going into a market at a time when there was a real supply-demand issue around PeopleSoft. We had some ideas. We went sniffing around, got creative relationships with procurement people within some of the organizations we were going after, and began sniffing around what's the rate tolerance, you know? And so I would say there was a bit of trial and error, but we always tried to go higher. You know, we tried to enter higher and maybe go down a little bit, you know, if we needed to land the work and the strategic work that we wanted and so on, right? So we had a mindset, I would say a confident mindset that we knew we were supplying something of value. And so we got into the hourly based stuff. I mean, the majority of our IT consulting was hourly based IT consulting. However, I've had a more recent experience in jumping out on my own. When I did that in 2017, I just decided, you know what, I had a bit of a safety net. So I had, again, confidence. So I went a value-based pricing. And so I guess, you know, I just decided to go for it. And the first couple of proposals I put in front of owners of businesses when I jumped out, I did, in my mind, I did a bit of a computation on the impact I could have, and just decided, you know what, I want to share in the impact I'm going to have. And the first couple of proposals ended up getting accepted, right? And so I would say today, none of my work is done by the hour. It's all done value-based. So
walk us through that. I mean, because most people, all they know are hourly based, or they'll scope it out on a project. They'll deliver their statement of work, maybe an SLA type, agreement, and they just start slaving away.
Yeah.
But you're saying what? They come to you, they're like, man, I got this $1 million problem. And you're like, I got $1 million solution.
Yeah.
You know, and so do you get a little bit of a retainer?
Yes.
And then like 10% of the improvement? Are you like, how do you track that? And are you kind of fishing a little bit? Like,
yes,
hey, I'll take 50% of the improvement. Oh, okay. I'll only take 20%. I mean,
yeah. So maybe I'll step back and just come at it from the perspective of I'm talking to the owner of a business, and we are having a conversation. Now, keep in mind, my services is helping them grow their sales culture, which in turn produces growth for the organization. And the initial conversations I'm having, I am asking questions around what their present revenues are, and stuff like, you know, where do they want to be? Where are they presently? So I call it the diagnostic conversation. Where do you want to be in 2-3 years? Where are you today? What's holding you back? What are the bridges you need to cross to get there? And while they're answering those questions, they're spewing out problems that they have that I'm in my mind recording that I could help them solve. And so then my proposal is initially a situational analysis, which is basically me regurgitating what they told me. And then what I do is I get what their revenue is, I get where they want to go, and let's just say they want to double in size in 3 to 5 years. Basically, I give them a methodology for enabling the sales culture that I really believe in, and I then share that. I give them a computation for what my fee would be as a percentage of that growth. And when they see it that way, it basically shows them that I'm prepared, that they're paying, that they're going to pay for me, 10 times over type of thing. Right. So that's how I then present it back to them. And it seems to work. Right. In terms of how it's executed, what I basically do is I say, let's just say for round numbers, it's a $100,000 contract. I will ask for 30% upfront, and the remainder I will ask to be spread out over the 12-month contract. So, that's how I went about it, and so far so good, right? I've landed myself personally. I've got, I work with 17 or 18 clients within my sort of geography area here. So that's that. And so the retainer is, I kind of look at that monthly, the 70% divided out over 12 months is somewhat of a retainer, I guess. Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, and I know people are listening to this saying, well, what if they don't give me all the numbers? And what if they won't share that information? It's like, well, that's a sign.
Yeah.
Right. It's a sign that you haven't disqualified appropriately. Right. Cause I tell people this all the time. It's like, we're having this conversation, I'm like, well, Chris, in round numbers, how much would you like to grow? Like, where are things now? How much you say that's impacting you? He's like, well, I'm not sure I'm prepared to, divulge that kind of information.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, well, I apologize. And they're like, what? Say, well, I've obviously done something to create distrust, a sense of, hard-heartedness. Right?
Yes.
So should I back up? We kind of restart, or should I just close the books? Because there's no reason for us to continue having this conversation if we don't trust one another. And they're just like a punch in the face, right? Yes. But it is. It's like, I need to know, and I understand. Most of the time, our prospects won't trust us in the beginning because they've just been burned by everybody else.
Yes. Yes.
Right. The whole reason we're having a conversation is because they're hurting, and they're hurting probably because they've been burned.
Exactly.
Someone else let them down. So we've got to help bring them along.
Right.
So
yeah, you gotta, and I remember when I had you on my podcast, you focused a lot on disqualification, and I was really appreciative of it. And there's a couple of things going through my mind there. You really need to believe in yourself, believe in the value you're bringing. And if you're listening to Wes in terms of that question that the statement you said there around being in a situation where they're not divulging the information, and if you're listening to you say that, you're listening to Wes say that, and you're saying, oh, I'd never be able to do that. Really, that's a sign. It's a sign of something, right? It's a sign of a lack of belief or confidence. Yeah. Go to work on yourself on that, and maybe just try, right? I was reading a simple statement I read there today. What experiment can you run today to test your limits, right? And wake up, go into a conversation, and just say it, right? And get the feedback and go with it, And then if you find it works, you'll be confident doing it the second and third and fourth time. But unless you're going to try it, just go for it is what I would say.
Yeah, and that's the only difference between you and me now and you and me 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
We've just been burned, or you get in the car and you're like, oh, I can't believe I should have asked this. I should have said this. Oh, I'm such an idiot. If you just get punched in the face enough times, finally you're like, I'm tired of getting punched. I'm just going to ask the question and just sit there and let it hang heavy.
Yeah.
And make them answer it.
Exactly.
And then,
Yeah.
that's the beauty. You just get to the truth. Ideally, I want a sale, right? But
Yes.
ultimately, I just want I want a definitive answer. I want a decision.
Right.
Are we moving forward? Or are we not moving forward? Now, that moving forward may not mean you're giving me money right now, but it means you're going to take the recommendation to the board of directors because you meet on the second Thursday of every month. And so, okay, 10 days from now, y'all are going to meet. Fine.
Yes.
I can forget it. I'm going to put it on my calendar. All right. Should I call you Friday? Yep. Fine. 10 o'clock. Great. I'll call you Friday. 10. I forget who you are until then.
Exactly.
My calendar dings in 5 minutes. Call Chris, get decision from the board of directors on the second Thursday. I'm like, oh yeah. I forgot about that guy.
I forgot about
what's up. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, like as soon as you left the boardroom or the meeting, it was like next. I'm on to the next one, right?
Yeah, but most people, you're like, well, Chris, how'd it go? Pretty good. How do you feel about it? I think it went well. What's the next steps? They said they'd get back to me.
I know.
What the hell does that mean? They're going to call you, tweet you, Snapchat you? What does that mean?
Exactly. But and maybe I can just share with the audience and with you the fact that we're all like, I'm still learning. So, I went through a really good run back. Let's just say it was a year and a half ago. I probably batted 80% on the people I met. The people I met who were.
That was right after you went through the 30-day sales growth course, right? Okay, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so. I love it. I batted, let's just say 80%, rough number. And
this is when you went on your own. When you went out on your own, you mean?
Yeah. I batted 80%, and then I went through a spell where I batted virtually 0%, maybe 10% for about, I'm going to say seven meetings with business owners.
And 7 meetings over like 2 months, 3 months?
Yeah, let's just say over 2 months, probably a good number, right? Because I don't need a whole pile of customers, so I'm not always scouting for new customers. Well, I am. I'm consistent around it, but I do turn to tap up and down a little bit every now and then. But I was batting low, and so I did some reflection. I was like, what have I changed? And the change I made is I became a little eager to jump to a proposal. So I went in, had the initial meeting, collected information, and I jumped to, would you like a proposal? Or I'll send you a proposal, right? And I lost my posture, right? I became the salesperson, if that makes sense. You know what I'm trying to say by that. I began selling the person. I began pushing the person versus pulling the person to me. And I realized I had made this accidental shift in my whole tempo and composure. And I then shifted back, and it's almost like I had to have I wanted the client to beg me for a proposal. And I started batting a high again within, 70%, 80%, 90%, whatever.
Were you raising your prices? Like, were you focused on a monetary goal or anything, or?
Nothing was different, only me being overeager to land clients.
Why would you get eager though? I mean, because if you're batting,
it's a valid question. It's just like I started to acquire my mindset started to shift to, oh my God, I could turn this into millions of dollars. So I started to get over cocky. It's just small adjustments in, not small, they're big adjustments, but you don't realize you're doing them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's the dichotomy of life, right? Yeah. Is that, because I always say that time kills deals, right? And certainly, like they've shown the statistics, like in real estate, if somebody's looking for a house, they click your button, they want to inquire about the pricing or an open house, whatever, whoever like gets back in touch with them, and boom, the huge percentage, they close that deal.
Yeah.
But as the relationship evolves, you need more time. You have to start playing kind of hard to get, right? Kind of nonchalant,
Exactly.
like, yeah, it'd be great if we did business together. It'll be great if we don't do business together. I mean, whatever's right. I mean,
Yeah.
and because, yeah, I wish I could quantify it, but it's kind of like this gut feel. It's like, I know when it's ready to start talking money, but
Yes.
I think as a salesperson, everybody listening needs to understand that, like, the client has to qualify themselves to see the price.
Yes.
Right? It's like, I don't know if you're worthy of me sharing
Yeah.
with you my pricing. And it's a subtle shift, but you gotta, what I put here, you were talking about keep your posture, right? It's that,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit, I don't know. Do you have a way to qualify it? I mean, it's just, it's
Yeah.
subjective.
Well,
To me, it's, you do all the right things, but it's kind of like, okay, now we're ready.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it comes with the belief idea, right? I mean, if you really believe in yourself and in what your product or your service is, the customers who are right will self-identify, and you just need to ask the right question, ask the questions, and have a sales process where you maintain your integrity. And the word that was coming to mind there while I was watching you on camera and listening to you was intuition. To me, the best salespeople have a really fine-tuned intuition to know when is the right time to ask the questions and to ask for the sale and so on, right? And being able to tap into, and this might sound hairy-fairy, but tapping into the buyer's energy and knowing if it's authentic and if it's genuine and so on, right? And not putting yourself in really vulnerable positions, overselling to buyers who really have no interest anyway. They're just playing you, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a feeling thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, is there a way to accelerate the development of that intuition, or do you think we all have it to a degree? Maybe we just don't trust it because we're new. And we think, oh, it's got to be much harder than this. I've got to really slave over this and, bring them pizza and take them to ball games and really just work super hard to gain their trust, right?
I think you're nailing it. Everyone has it, but they're just not they're not tuning into it, and they're overcomplicating it in their own heads, right? Thinking they need to force it. Yeah, and this is why I know the flip side of that, I'm not a real big believer in companies who have, they force their sales representatives to close deals at certain times of the year. I mentioned PeopleSoft earlier. It was later acquired by Oracle. I don't have a big respect. I don't have a big respect for these end of the year blitzes where you offer these massive discounts for sales and stuff like that. I prefer to work in and to work with the long game type of mindsets where this is a long game and it's all about serving customers when they're ready to be served and when we are ready to serve them versus forcing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know people are listening to this like, well, y'all own your own business. Y'all were the owners. You have that luxury. And it's like, look, even when I was in corporate America, I'd have boss, and I worked in technology. I worked with some startups, and I mean, they would be grinding me like, go get this deal, and we need this deal, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's no other real way to put it other than I would lie to my boss.
That's right.
I'm like, yeah, I sent them the proposal. It's just, no, it's just not a good time.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to do it. I knew they weren't going to take the deal.
Right.
Knew it wasn't good timing for them. But I also knew that if I did something desperate, right, 50% off, right, accelerated shipping, extended warranty, blah, 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 to get this deal, then all I was doing was grooming them to wait for the end of the next quarter to place their next order.
Absolutely.
And once my prospects knew that I didn't play that game, maybe I sold at the end of the quarter. Maybe I sold at the beginning of the quarter, but I sold at a higher price.
Right.
So I wasn't in such desperation, come the end of the quarter, end of the year.
Yes.
And I was the .coms were blowing up. They were imploding. I didn't always make my number on some of those, but I also got laid off when I was 33% over quota. Nothing you could do. If the company's going under, it's going under.
Yes.
So, but I just wasn't going to play that game.
Exactly.
It didn't feel right to me. And it's just like, so you do have the right to do this as an employee. Now, you may not be an employee after you do that,
but
you can look yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. And you will find the environment that is more in alignment with what your mindset is, right? Yeah, you'll find a company like, well, how come you're not at that last company? Because they want me to do a deal at 50% off, just to make the number and do some other BS and just take a PO and hold on to it and ship. I worked for a public company that would ship empty boxes. Because they couldn't make the stuff fast enough, but they could show that it shipped. And then later on, they would literally ship empty boxes. Wow.
And I'm like, I ain't playing that game.
No.
A company,
then,
they won't mind hiring you for that.
Yeah. Companies that sell hardware and you'd go to the customer's site 6 months later and it's shelfware. It's sitting there, hasn't been implemented, and there's so much of that happening because salespeople have forced the deals, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you, especially being on your own now, and, for those listening, that in an ideal world, well, to a degree, it's not quite ideal, but like, the gym membership. I remember how shocked I was. I learned this, I don't know, almost 20 years ago. A friend of mine I was in the Air Force with, he was the bodybuilding Armed Forces champion. So this dude was just ripped to shreds, right?
Wow.
And he got a job working in the fitness industry. And he was in a little town in South Alabama. And I was like, well, how big is the membership? And I thought he would say, because like I've gone to gyms ever since I was 14 years old, right? And sometimes it's crowded around, end of the work day, but usually they're like pretty damn empty. So I'm thinking there's like 500 members.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like 50,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, what? What, 50 to 1,000? No, 50,000. And I'm like, there's no way in hell there's 50,000 members in that little town.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, yeah, because people pay and they don't go and they just keep paying. Now, if I'm a gym owner, I'm happy. I'm making a lot of money. My stuff's not getting worn out. But as a human being, people are wasting their money and they're still not in good shape. So how do you balance that? Like, what's the right mix of charge a lot and do a little?
Yeah.
Right. But still get the client 5 and 10 and 20x results.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a really, really good question. What I would say is the health of the business is it's really comes down to the results that you are achieving for the customers, for the customers, right? And there are going to be industries where it's a numbers game and you get numbers in the door, but I don't think building a business on that is going to be a business that's going to be around forever. And because then something will disrupt that industry or that business. Like for me, I was a member in a gym like that, and it never catered to what I needed to achieve my fitness goals. I was paying $40 every 2 weeks or whatever it was. And I went 3 times a month and then stopped going at all. And then I woke up and I realized, I really need to take this seriously. And I ended up joining a gym where I pay $100 to go there once.
Right.
And I have been going there now for a year, and I've went from 30% body fat down to, I don't know what it is, 19 or something like that. And I've achieved my goals. I'm a healthier individual, and that company is, so they're catering to a niche and helping them, helping the people get their results. And so I'll be a customer for life of that company, right? So I would suggest that what I'm going to spend at this particular business is far greater. A smaller group of customers spending spending a lot more is going to be a lot more valuable to an organization, because they're going to be around for life. I mean, they're going to be a legacy. It's a legacy type business. Versus the more transactional type thing, which are making their business model is built on people coming in and not following through. They're not going to be around for life. You see all kinds of different gyms go out of business when you think they're flourishing, but they're really not, right?
Right.
Anyway, that's a bit of a
How do you balance that though? Because I'd imagine as soon as you onboard a client, right? So that $100,000 contract, they stroke you a check for 30 grand.
Yeah.
They're probably wanting a few meetings, right?
Yeah.
They want to see some manuals. I need to see some templates built out. I mean, shouldn't we have a meeting? And so is it front end loaded? Do you find like, all right, let's just, push in the car that's out of gas, right? Oh, a lot of energy at first.
Yeah.
Get some momentum. All right, now you're just kind of keeping your hand on the back of the bumper and just keep it going.
Yeah, I would suggest that my work is very much like that. It's intensive in the first month or so, but I'm always ensuring I'm communicating the expectations and around what happens over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 steps. So there's never any surprises, right? So it's intensive in the beginning as I help customers identify what their true value proposition is, identify prospect lists, identify how to get their organization involved in sales, and so on. We do some initial training sessions and so on. And then really over time, we evolve into weekly meetings, status meetings, and monthly training, right? But it's all about making sure the customer is educated. What customers really what they want is they want certainty and they want no surprises, or they want certainty and they want proactiveness, right? And so by being constantly in touch with the customer and being upfront and open with them, you can really have a customer for life that way, right? So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah. And did it take you a while to kind of feel that out, to know like what's the right pace? And because sometimes, I mean, on the outside looking in, usually it's pretty obvious what needs to happen. But I mean, when you have like a 5 or a 10-day antibiotic, right? You don't just take the whole thing at once and you're better, right? Like, no, right. You need to spread this out over 10 days or, it's not going to cure the infection.
Yes.
So do you find yourself more of like holding back than actually delivering so they can process it?
Yeah. I mean, I've learned the hard way that. I've also learned the hard way with a couple of the clients where really what I proposed or the type of client, it goes back to what you basically sorting out non-ideal clients, right? So initially I may have been a little bit too eager to just sign up new customers, right? And you take pretty well anything initially. But it's through going a bit wide with your umbrella or your net that you figure out really what you're best suited to do, right? And what you're most happiest doing it with. So I would say initially some mistakes around that, but recognizing those mistakes is important. And being, as you said, they're a bit eager on the front end, sharing everything. I've learned maybe the hard way as well that you don't go, you drip a program wise, you drip it out over time, so that you don't overwhelm them, and B, you still got some stuff left in your back pocket to impress them with, right?
Yeah.
As you go along.
How often does somebody really want outside help versus they want the glamour of having a coach?
Yeah.
And they kind of are going to go do the right things anyway. Maybe like it's a little nudge, but it's more of like they want you there as a backstop, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Just to know in a pinch they can go, but otherwise, kind of like when you raise your hand, the teacher comes, look, you're doing a test, right? And they can't tell you the answer, but just the mere fact of them, I'm talking through it. Oh, never mind. I got the answer.
Yes.
Or the teacher just kind of nodding, and maybe they kind of roll their eyes a little bit like, oh, okay. It's not D. So I'd already ruled, I knew it was A or B, but okay, thank you. I know what to do. Do you run into that?
Yeah, well, a couple of things come to mind there. What I found successful for me was leading. I call it the thin wedge, right? What can get you in the door solving a problem? So sales, growth, company. Every company should want to grow. So when you get in front of them and you pitch them on your ability to help facilitate their growth, through, for me, enabling a sales culture and getting everyone involved in sales, that's a thin wedge. People see that, and you get in there through that. So what ends up happening, I find, for me, I work directly with the CEO, the business owner, keeping in mind, for me, my ideal client is somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $12 million in size. And so working with the CEO is possible, right? When I'm not talking about massive organizations where I'm right. So by working with the CEO, then I have an ability, one of my unique abilities, I guess, leveraging my own personal strengths, is I bring some accountability. I very rarely provide the solutions, but I have an ability to talk to the business owner and really help them dig up the solution that's already inside them, right? And so what ends up happening is I end up becoming a bit of a trusted advisor, or a trusted advisor to the owners of the business. And so that's how I sort of, if I look at my client base, I for most of them, they retain me after the 1 year, beyond that initial scope of work, right? And it's in that trusted advisor capacity. And truly, I just meet them once a week, to go in, have a chat, or over Zoom for a conversation, structure an agenda, and bring some accountability to them. So owners of businesses, a lot of them, that's all they want is someone to hold their feet to the fire, help them stay true to decisions they've made, right? So I know, hopefully that makes a bit of sense, what I've shared there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's East Coast. It's East Coast and a half, right, for you?
Yeah, it's 8:30, 8:25 here.
Man, and you've done a great job. Unless people that aren't watching the video, it looks like a glass of water, but I know, he's Canadian and it's cold up there. And notice he's gotten wordier and lengthier as this has gone on. So I'm not sure that's water, but I appreciate you, sticking with it and pacing yourself on that.
Hopefully there's been a bit of value in there.
Where do we send people? I've got your book here. It's Time to Sell, Cultivating a Sales Mindset.
Yeah.
Where should we send folks to learn more about you, get the book, everything else?
Yeah, go to my website, chrisspurvey.com. If you allow me to spell it, obviously Chris, C-H-R-I-S, SPURVEY.com. If you go there, actually, and you can get an electronic version of my book for free by just signing up for my newsletter. And so you'll get an ebook version. And if you want to buy the book, well, there's links on my site to Amazon and Chapters and so on. Chapters is the Canadian bookstore. So there you go.
Yeah, and there's pictures of you like taming polar bears and stuff.
Yeah. I'm naked in those, aren't I? I've never seen chainsaw sculptures like this. You're a true Canadian, huh?
Man, well, Chris Spurvey, thanks for putting up with me, man. This has been great.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I loved having you on my show, and I encourage anyone listening to, they can check out my show where I interviewed Wes on, and it was phenomenal. Great value.
Were you able to rebuild the servers? I heard, like, once you announced I was on, like, it just melted everything.
Oh, it crashed.
You had like just burned up the phone lines.
Oh yeah, it melted.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry about it. I mean, I warned you, but I mean, it happens. All right. So thanks for having me on that. All right.
All right, man.
Spurvey all the way. I don't even know. Some big Labrador and albatross. What is it? What's it called?
Newfoundland and Labrador.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. You couldn't tell I was a geography major in the Air Force, could you? Thanks for coming on Sales Podcast, man. It's been great.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
What'd I tell you? I told you were in for a treat, right? Be where you need to be. Do whatever it takes. Have a vision. Work with focus on what's got to get done right now. All right? I loved his retainer model, testing your own limits. Don't be too eager to jump to a proposal. I was literally talking about that today on the 30-day sales growth program. Because with every great idea, there's the opposite that is also true. Okay? And it's kind of crazy. But I talk about all the time in sales that time kills deals. And so you think, all right, got to be Johnny on the spot, get them everything they need right away, blah, blah, blah. And that's true, except when it's not true. And when it's not true is on detailed, complex, high-dollar, strategic negotiations. You need to be Johnny on the spot, like in real estate or people call your place of business. Answer the phone quickly, engage them quickly. But as time goes on, you need to make sure that you have all the facts, that you know what is going on so you can structure this deal appropriately, accordingly. And sometimes, believe it or not, all the time, selling is like dating. There's a courtship there. You have to play hard to get to a degree. And if you are desperate and hungry and anxious to close the deal, it will set off alerts in the mind of the prospect, and they will slow down. They will ask for more information. They will cancel that deal. So you've got to know how to play this appropriately. We get into things like this. It's the type of strategy I can help you formulate, because in the group you can ask questions. Every Thursday we're on live. If you ask a really detailed question, I'll make a video for you to help answer it, because it'll benefit you and the whole group. So, but you've got to understand the rules. You have to become a master of the rules so you know how and when to break the rules, right? Because the rule is time kills deals, except when it doesn't. So you've got to be very good. And it takes a long time to become very good. And it can become frustrating. It can be lonely. That's why I made the 30-day sales growth program. Come hang out. It's $49.99 a month right now. I'm doing this as a test. People are joining, and it's crazy. They're joining, and people will skip the calls. They think it's like the gym, you know. You join the gym but never attend. Oh, but you belong to a gym. Well, how's that working out for you? How are your pants fitting? You've got to show up and do the work. Same thing here. Show up and do the work, and I guarantee you're going to sell more, faster, at higher margin with less stress and have a lot more fun doing it. But you got to join, and you have to participate. Later, I'll raise the price again. Why? Because I can. But I'd like to keep it very low, very affordable to help more people. I've been in $25,000 masterminds, $30,000, $12,000, $7,500 workshops. I don't know. I guess the good thing is I have made good friends out of those. But probably the most beneficial, the most significant thing I ever went through was a $600 sales course back in 2006. Changed my life forever. So if you're looking for high dollar, you know what? Join for $49 and then pay me for private coaching. How's that? Then you can pay a little bit and a lot, and you can feel good. I'm happy to take your money, but I don't have to take all of it. Okay? But come join us, 30daysalesgrowth.com. I'll go sell something.